Did you know that for many immigrants, the term migration goes beyond a simple change of address or geographical location? It often means change, and like any kind of change, it can be very challenging. On Community Connect today, we'll be joined by people navigating change and finding new opportunities in the community. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us again on Community Connect. In our community today, I'm joined by Niels, Angela, Kindy, Larry, and Hoshin. It is such a pleasure to have you joining us today. So Niels, just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Niels. I'm from Belgium. I live currently in Vancouver, and I work at UBC, which is a very international environment.
Okay, Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm Albertan, and I'm Poundmaker Cree, and I'm a performing artist, and I've lived in Victoria for 9 years.
Great. Kindy.
Hi, I'm Kindy. I'm West Indian of Barbadian descent. I work at Royal Rose University, it's a very multicultural environment, and that allows me to improve upon my intercultural skills.
Larry.
Hi, I'm Larry. I'm from Nigeria, West African part of Africa. I moved to Canada like 2 years ago, and I'm just done with my master's in global management.
And Hoshin.
Hi, I'm Hoshin, and I'm Chinese. I'm currently working in the financial industry. Many people think it's not a very diverse industry, and I'm trying to make it more diverse.
Oh, cool, interesting. So from the sound and looks of it, we have just one actual Canadian here with us today, Angela. But I always find it really interesting to know what it means for someone to be Canadian.
I think being Canadian means to be part of a cultural mosaic. So I think if you are diverse, you are Canadian. And I think what it means to be Canadian means to be non-judgmental and accepting. And I think my experience, I was not raised by an Indigenous family. I'm adopted, was adopted at 5, and I was raised in a home that really fostered a love for my culture. And so I find my experience in being Canadian and in traveling internationally and being welcomed as a Canadian is that we are inclusive and we're continually working, I think, internally to express that.
Okay.
I totally agree. Being accepting is one of the most important reasons that I came to Canada in the first place. Before I worked in a company in America, and I was wanting to do a master. That's actually why I'm here. And then having experienced the racism that I had in the States, I just feeling that I need a place that I feel absolutely safe and accepted. Knowing that Canada is famous for its acceptance and multiculturalism, that's why I'm here, and until this day, it never let me down.
Great, great.
Personally, I think Canadians are really diverse. When I got here in the first place, my personal experience, they were receptive of me coming to them. They were open. They encouraged multiculturalism, and it was a really nice experience for me. It was really easy to integrate.
Niels, would you say that's been your experience too, or have you had some challenges along the way in the 6 years that you've been in Canada in terms of integrating?
I think what Angela said, the word she said, she used inclusiveness, is what I experience very much here. When I moved here, I felt this eagerness and interest of people to know where I'm from, and it's almost natural for people to meet people from different cultures and kind of adopt it as a Canadian way to have this multiculturalism here. So it didn't feel like they almost like say like you're one of us, even though you come from somewhere else.
Right.
And that was a strong feeling I got here.
Kindy, I'd like for you to speak to this, looking at the unique sets of skills and people from different backgrounds that we have sitting in this room. It makes you wonder what Canada would be like without, each and every of these unique and different skills and cultural backgrounds and all of that. What do you think that such a unique combination of skills contributes to the society?
Well, I think it actually builds the community and makes it what it is because Canada is known for its multiculturalism. And you cannot have multiculturalism without people from many diverse nations. And I find once you bring those values and those identities, it all builds up and makes you Canadian.
So true. Like when multiculturalism is to, you have multiple, values and nations and identities that come together. But also, I think being multicultural, on the layer of it is all these different differences come together, but not in conflict, but in harmony. That people find a way to coexist of our differences, not to find conflicts.
Thank you. I think that's a very important point to make. But all I'm hearing about, I've been hearing so much about multiculturalism. I'm interested to know what the place of pluralism is in a multicultural society.
Ensuring that everyone is treated the same way. So there's nothing like individualism. You looked at the same level. So you can always showcase your talent you have the same opportunities that every other person has.
For me, pluralism is all about unity. Well, I think it's best to do it when you come together as a group so that you can share your common interests, so that you can share your values or your identities on a bigger scale. And if everyone does that, I think that makes up pluralism.
When I think of pluralism, I think in terms of just having different and unique ideas and worldviews and still finding a place for all of that. So we could be different, like in terms of what we're coming from or, what we're used to, but still finding a good place to express that. Niels, is that something
I
that...
think it's not only bringing them together, but also being inspired by these different views and come out stronger, actually, and to work towards a common goal or share common values.
Yes.
But I think also, if we only focuses on differences and how to make sure every value is being put in the same place, I think also it provides a chance that we'll enter like a very dangerous place that we have no common ground because everyone's value being seen as the same. But then we as people always have to have common ground first and then build on it. Because some values, they will have conflicts values, right?
Yes.
And I think pluralism also means that we have to, build as a community, come together, agree on certain things, agree on certain values, and then we build on it.
Hoshan, you made a very, very, as always, you make really important points, but introducing conflict to societies, to different cultural settings, I think is a very important thing that we can't afford to ignore. As much as Canada is thriving in terms of being, to a large extent, the multicultural model for the rest of the world, we can't ignore the fact that there are still one or two things that we need to work on. Are there some of these instances in your own experience? It's like, I probably have to change myself or change my worldview for me to be able to fit into this situation.
I think every one of us here have to change something of how they see the world at some point to fit in the group that we're in. Because I believe not everything that we think, that we believe in, is the common ground of the group that we're in, if that makes sense to everybody.
I had this experience when I was doing my master's in railroads. So we always put in groups every quarter. And each groups are always very diverse in nature. You'd have to work with an Indian or a Chinese or someone else. So, and one thing I kind of noticed is I was probably very receptive to people. I would have to understand you first because you're coming from a very different cultural background than I am. So there are some things I'm used to that you're not, and I have to understand that you're probably not. So I have to look at you in the perspective that some things I would do, you wouldn't understand them, and I shouldn't hold that against you. Right. So I think having that understanding about everyone makes you avoid conflicts, like you said.
What I'm hearing from you is, first, we need to be open to the fact that people are different. And that's the only way we can get to the next level of being able to accept them, being able to tolerate and respect where they're coming from. And then going from there makes it easier to work with them.
I don't think what people know is that a lot of Canadians that would say, or colonial or immigrate to Canada, actually understand what their culture means. So I think we're all in the same pot. If everyone feels free to speak freely, we all kind of don't know our culture and we're all trying to figure that out. And
Right.
so I would say my family are trying out Ancestry DNA for the first time because they grew up in Canada where you just, the holidays are Christmas, Easter, Halloween, so you celebrate those holidays, and we have our own traditions as a family, but we don't have cultural traditions in the sense that Canadian is we celebrate the Hallmark holidays. So becoming a performing artist was the first time that I experienced Indigenous practice for the first time, and I really think everybody's on that journey. So the first time I experienced smudging, the first time I experienced holding space in a circle was the first time I realized the sacredness of humanity.
Right.
And so I think when people feel held in a safe space, I think that's when people work together.
Yeah.
And when you see the value of the person across from you, I think you really can understand and start to work with them.
Niels, I can imagine that it will be easier for someone, just an everyday person, to want to gravitate more towards you as a white person, as being actually Canadian. Or there's this image at the back of people's minds of what a Canadian should look like, which ultimately I'm guessing would be a white person.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I don't really get that question that often. It's only when I speak to people for a while and then they notice I still have a slight accent, which I think Europeans will never get rid of. But then they ask you, but I noticed something. Where are you from? Because your English is a little bit funny, they think. And then I explain that I'm from Europe, I don't speak English as a first language. And then, yeah, some people are a little bit surprised, but yeah, I think you're right. It's maybe because I'm white, people think automatically I'm Canadian and I speak English, but yeah, that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of people who are white and who are also immigrants here.
Of course, and there are lots of people who are black or who are Asians who are actually Canadians.
Yeah. And some white people also come from very different cultures, have very
Yes.
different ways of looking at the world than maybe white Canadians do.
Very
Yeah.
true.
It's quite easy to say if anyone is asked what it is to be Canadian, it'll bring up personal conflict in anyone living in Canada right now because they don't understand what that is. I'm adopted in a French-Canadian home. My dad would say he's English, my mom would say he's French, my siblings would say I don't know what I am because my dad doesn't know what it is to be English because he never grew up in England.
Right.
And my mother never grew up in France, but she's Quebecois. But does she really know that? She doesn't know that. And I was raised by those two loving parents, but I'm Indigenous and I don't even know what it is to be Indigenous. But having met my biological family for the first time, my family just embraced each other, and that's what reconciliation is, and is an embrace of each other even though you're different, and we're all on a journey.
Right.
In a non-poetical sense, we're all still trying to define what that is right now.
Exactly.
I think speaking to what you just said, basically your culture is not where you're from, but I think it's just a summation of the experiences you've had.
Well, making reference to what Neil said about, the conversation, I find I'm having a conversation with people, and it's only throughout the midway part through the conversation, they'd stop and say, where are you from? And I will pause as well because I'm like, oh, okay, I pronounce that word differently. So I find sometimes they don't automatically assume it right off the bat. But with certain pronunciations would state, okay, she's not a Canadian. I assume she was, but she's not anymore.
That is interesting. And then in my own case, there have been certain instances where I meet people and just this and then they go, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Nigeria. And they're like, but your English is really good. And then at that point, I'm trying to decide if I want to educate or just inform and leave it at that. It speaks to the need for people to educate themselves, and I think that's what happens in a multicultural society. There's got to be that openness to an ongoing education on a personal level, and just embracing other people too. It's part of the educational process.
The hilarity of that is that I would say, as a First Nations, I was here first. I actually, in speaking to you, I actually get asked on a weekly basis where I'm from, and I say I'm from Canada. But I get asked if I'm Portuguese, if I'm Spanish, if I'm
Right.
Brazilian, and I think because I am a quarter non-First Nations. But I think the commercial view of Canada is Neil's. But I think it's true. This is like, you look like you belong from my family. So, but I think like it's so important to be talking about this because I honestly think if you go to any university or any college in a city, this is what Canada looks like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But speaking to the question about language, it's not very often I got a question of like, because of how I speak, then people start to question where I'm from. I think just for my look, people just assume or expect I'm not from Canada. So actually, it's not very often because I speak a different accent and people, oh, so you're not Canadian, because they just assume I'm not Canadian.
And that's the thing too with stereotypes and just attaching stereotypes to people. For all that we know, you could be more Canadian than, okay, definitely not Angela, but you could be more Canadian than the person asking that question. So it goes to the question of how do we define Canadianness? What are the mental images that we've attached to what it means to be Canadian? And I feel that until we start asking ourselves those questions, those fundamental questions, we can't have the change that we need in our mindsets and in our paradigms and the way we approach people from different cultures. These are some of the lived experiences and unique perspectives that make Community Connect such a great place to come together. We'll be back after this quick break as we join Raj to see what's happening in the community.
Hello everyone, this is your host Dheeraj, again on the streets of Victoria. This time asking community a few interesting questions and also seeing how well do they know the celebrities and popular people in pop culture and media. What are the responses? Let's find out. I'm going to give you some names and you have to tell me what countries are these people from. You ready? Former Governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, he's European.
He's from Germany. It's Schwarzenegger. I believe that is my final answer.
Somewhere in America. America.
From Austria.
Yeah.
Austria.
Rihanna.
U.S. The United States? No, that's wrong. New York?
Canada. Oh, Colombia. I don't know.
Caribbean.
India.
I'm pretty sure she was born in the U.S. I have no idea. The United States? Barbados. Barbados.
Barbados.
That's correct, Barbados. Pamela Anderson.
Oh, she's from here. She's from Ladysmith.
Yeah, apparently she's from Vancouver Island.
She is from Ladysmith and she's from Vancouver Island. Oh my god. Okay, Melania Trump.
Russia.
No, it's one of those Eastern ones in the middle of a bunch that changed names a bunch of times.
I think you have the wrong person. I have no idea. It's like Eastern country.
Yeah, she's from Slovenia.
Slovenia.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna write that one down.
What is that?
Yugoslavia.
Right a middle phone.
That is not even a country.
Yeah.
That is not even a country. Nelly Furtado.
She's Canadian. She's us Canadian, us Portuguese, I think.
Okay.
I went to high school here. It's like nobody was allowed to not know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They kind of rub it in your face.
Especially if a teacher has taught Nelly Furtado,
like,
they
are
let
you
you
like
know
a bird?
every year. No. They can let you every year.
Do you want to fly away from Victoria like Nelly Furtado?
So many people have blended into this community so well that we do not even realize that they were immigrants at one time. This is Dheeraj, signing off from the streets of Victoria. Until next time.
Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking about some of the lived experiences and the unique perspectives that my guests today have around finding new opportunities and connecting with their immediate communities. It is such a pleasure to have each of you joining us today.
Thank you.
It will be really interesting to know what opportunities you've been able to tap into and what your take is on equitable opportunities in the community.
Well, I find I think it depends basically on the type of person that you are, your temperament, and because if you are a more introverted kind of person, I think it becomes a lot more challenging. You're not as outgoing as as you would like to be, or you don't have that established network when you move to a new environment. So it becomes a lot more challenging to find those opportunities. I'm not saying that they aren't available, but it's very challenging to locate them.
For you to have access to opportunities, you have to be able to communicate and connect to people.
I think what you said about introvert versus extrovert is very true. I consider myself more of an introvert, and one of the good things I did, I think, when I moved to Canada is live with housemates. It really allowed, they were both Canadian, quite good embedded in the community, and it really allowed me very quickly to meet new people and also kind of felt like I was part of their community very quickly.
Right.
Or just do an activity. I started climbing, and through climbing I met so many people from the community. So
Right.
I think getting yourself exposed, going out there, it gives you a lot of access to opportunities you might miss out on if you just stay at home and not take initiative yourself.
I want us to talk about the subjects of integration. I found that my reality as a Nigerian, in terms of communication, in terms of the way I perceive the world, my reality was I was coming from a culture where communication was very high context. It was very implicit, and it can be very direct as well. But then in my work with people, in relating with people, even on a day-to-day basis, I found that communication in Canada was very low context, and it was very explicit. So when my supervisor, for instance, says, I want you to do ABC, they actually mean ABC. But I also found it to be a bit indirect. I found it a bit challenging to, have that shift in my mindset and my approach to things, coming from where I was coming from, where it was the exact opposite. Would you say that has been your experience too? And if that's been your experience, how have you been able to integrate and circumvent all of these challenges?
Sometimes because you don't know the language that well, you don't know how to express yourself in the way that Canadian does. And that kind of can be the barrier. And echo to what you just said, can be also the barrier for you at work. But then I think to my personal experience, I actually also work for an immigrant. She's not Canadian particularly, but she is now, of course. And we always had communication challenges, even though she originated from high context culture too.
Right.
So I personal experience is never, at the end of the day, is never about what context your culture is and how you communicate. It's about try to find a way to understand each other's expectations. Even though you're from low context and from high context, but we can talk to each other, okay, so this is what you want,
Yes.
reconfirming. I think that's how you can get through
Right.
those barriers.
Right.
Nigeria is a very high power distance country.
Very true.
So basically, I can't call someone older than me by name because you're not supposed to do that. It was hard for me to do that when I first came to Canada, where I saw that everyone was calling everyone by name, no matter how old you are. A 90-year-old man, you call him by name. I was like, wow, that's like very surprising. But it took a while for me to adapt to that, and that's where integration comes in. You have to be able to adapt to anywhere you are.
I think that's a very good point, and it's nice to see it from your shoes. And having done projects with international students at a university level, it is frustrating, and I can sense the isolation that one can feel. And it's human core of us to feel community. And having moved to Victoria by myself as English-speaking Canadian, I found I really had to work at my network like it was my resume. And I'm an introvert and a performing artist. I need a lot of time to myself. But you kind of just grit your teeth. And I feel it's important to find your tribe.
Kindu, what would you say are the unique advantages of coming from a different world and making a place in a new world, and just a kind of contribution that you're able to make to a global progressive society?
Well, first of all, being from another culture, I think I bring that diverse aspect.
Right.
I bring a different culture, different value systems. And again, we're in Canada, so I think that every value that you bring, every identity from those separate cultures, bringing them together to build something new and bigger than ourselves, coming together to make a bigger community. I think that is very important. Retaining some of that, your own identity, but still also assimilating.
You see what they bring to Canada, or what they bring as values. You also question your own values. It's like I never thought that what I was thinking is maybe not really so good, you know? Like
Right.
some people bring these values that you actually appreciate more than what you were thinking before.
Right.
It's an advantage to come from where you were to a new place because you have that wealth of experiences before and you bring it somewhere else. So it makes you question what you've learnt. It makes you expand your mind. It makes you have a global mindset.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everyone that it's definitely an advantage of bringing different skills and different values because you expand yourself and the community that you're in. And I think to a global scale, if every community that accepts other differences into their community, then every community in the world and the world in general will be more acceptive, you know, be more tolerant to others.
And there you have it. These are the conversations that shape our community. And that is why Community Connect is such a great place to be. The change that we need starts with conversations like this. I hope you enjoyed listening to these amazing people today as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. We hope to see you next time on the show, even as we bring you even more interesting stories.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoy watching Community Connect as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. Join us next time as we bring you even more exciting and informative episodes of the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Email us at communityconnectbc@gmail.com. Until next time.